bitter winds, frozen mountains, creatures from Scandinavian folktales stalking through the firs. Few aesthetics pull me in quite like that from Norse mythology. Just as well, few types of games steal my time quite like those with PvE co-op survival, crafting, and base building. Ever since Minecraft, these games have been a dime a thousand, so I've done my very best to ignore them all, and let me tell you, it's been easy. In browsing the vast ocean of survival games, you'll find a tide of indie passion projects developed for the purpose of adorning a resume. By nature of their simplicity, the majority of these games possess a surface-level charm as nutritious as seawater. Valheim is another of these games, and to its credit, it brought a boat. Valheim is a PvE open-world survival game for 1 to 10 players lightly steeped in Norse mythology. You play as an orbital drop shock trooper risen from death by Odin's Valkyries to punish the evils imprisoned in the realm of Valheim. Once severed from Yggdrasil by the All-Father himself, your job, to claim the heads of everyone on Odin's shit list. In other words, undead murder servants sent to slaughter unsuspecting prey to prove your worth to Papa Wednesday. Your equipment, a couple of rags and 2 capable fists. Pure metal. There's 3 main ingredients that make up Valheim, those being crafting, exploration, and combat. Its success comes from the interplay of all 3. Together, Valheim achieves a sense of adventure so rich it's likely to influence the development of all survival games going forward. It's a game about wanderlust, discovery, perseverance, and conquering a world that does not want to be conquered. Welcome, warrior. Join me on my campaign through Valheim. Let's start with the meat. Like all true metal things begin, Valheim starts with one perilous objective: home decor. That means venturing out into the wilds and tree bunching until you have a few walls, a bed to sleep in, and a fire to comfort you. Just don't put the fire in the room with you, because even Odin's chosen can't breathe smoke. Not unlike the many lifeless games that come before it, Valheim offers an in-depth crafting system, crafting-based progression, and lots to build. When you're ready, you're free to explore the world and hunt the several bosses imprisoned within the realm. It's a lot like Terraria, except it's in 3D and the ocean matters a whole lot more. If you're familiar with Terraria, an all-around great game, then you'll be familiar with Valheim's progression. Most items that you can craft will be hidden from you at the start, unlocked over time through the collection of new materials, some of which only come from bosses. As you unlock new crafting recipes, you unlock new crafting stations as well as upgrades for those crafting stations. Thus, your selection of armaments, tools, and methods of travel expand dramatically, and so too your access to the world at large. You'll have a hard time crossing the ocean on a raft that's held together by hopes and dreams, but once you catch up with the Sumerians and discover bronze, you'll be on your way to your first proper floater. Then, the game truly opens up. But crafting is way more important than your ability to turn some shiny rocks into an axe or a deer into pants. Unlike most survival games, Valheim has much more respect for crafting. So much so, I'd say crafting is enshrined at the core of the game. Not only is it tied to your base building and power progression, it's tied to the upkeep of your equipment, your overall health, and how far you can make it to the world before returning home. Your crafting stations will be at the back of your mind nearly every waking moment, whether you're staring into an ember-eyed horde of skeletons or wading into the foreboding ocean fog miles away from home. Why is that? Let's break it down. To make any sort of base, you need a hammer to make a workbench. A workbench requires 10 wood. Don't forget the roof, it needs one of those too. Throw down a fire and a bed and build an enclosure for the bed, and voila! You have a cozy 1-bedroom camp for about 30 wood and 5 stone total. Easy enough. You now have access to basic equipment and the incredibly powerful rest bonus, which massively increases your stamina regeneration for a period of time. The cozier your camp, the longer the bonus lasts. This bonus alone affects every activity in the game, since just about every action requires stamina to perform. This includes sprinting, jumping, mining, logging, fishing, and combat actions like attacking, blocking, dodging, and drawing a bow. Without that bonus, stamina regeneration is slow under normal circumstances and glacial if you're cold or wet. In effect, this bonus determines your effective range when leaving home. Not only that, but as you stack your base with upgrades, you'll realize that you need to go further and further away from home to complete certain tasks. Further still, you need certain crafting stations to repair certain equipment, and building those crafting stations isn't so simple. I present to you the following hypothetical. Imagine you're on an island on the other side of the sea. It took about 15 minutes wrestling with the wind direction to get here, and it would take a similarly long time to get back home if you're lucky. But why are you out here? Maybe you're looking for a particular resource, or you're searching for the summoning altar for a boss. You've been in and out of burial chambers, and the Grey Dwarfs have battered you everywhere in between. Your troll leather armor is looking pretty cut up, and your bronze axe is broken. Sure, you could plop down a workbench and fix up basic equipment, but that axe needs a forge. You'll need to hunt down some copper veins, some surtling cores, and make a smelter, maybe a kiln too if you don't feel like cooking meat into coal, and make enough coal to make enough copper bars to make your forge. Did you even bring your pickaxe? If you think this sounds tedious, you're damn right it is, and frankly, I'm glad for it. You see, it's times like these when you're far, far away from home that you ask yourself the question, Do you make do with a dinky flint axe in your fists, take the time to establish another base, or do you turn back? This very question, more than anything else, is the game. It is the gameplay loop, and that's because crafting is so tightly intertwined with combat and exploration. In Valheim, crafting isn't a throwaway feature used as a keyword to generate revenue from anyone tempted by the odd early access game. Neither is it simply a time gate used to keep player progression in check. Crafting is a puzzle, the one you must constantly solve to play the game efficiently. This, more than anything else, is the foundation of the entire world. No matter the context, Valheim's world is designed to remind you again and again that it is your enemy, and no matter how tall you stand or how long you stride, you are so very, very small. But what do I mean when I say the world is your enemy? Well, no matter how many enemies throw themselves at you, you can count on the environment to provide more challenges more often in the form of natural obstacles. Despite the fact that the world is randomly generated from a seed, every challenge presented by the environment feels intentional. The challenge of navigation starts small, with questions like, how do I get up that hill? Thankfully, Odin's provided us with the legs of a Nord F-150, allowing us to motor up just about any slope stamina permitting. Then you might ask yourself, how do I cross that river? You might have enough stamina to swim across, and it might even be safe to do so if it isn't cold and there's no enemies waiting for you on the other shore. Or, if there's a tree nearby, you could chop it down and run across the trunk. If you're especially patient, you could throw down a raft and glide without a thought. Soon enough, you'll stumble into more complex situations, like finding the best route through a tightly packed forest with plenty of mossed over logs, boulders, trees, and rivulets in your way. If that doesn't sound so bad, try remembering that route while being driven through the night by an army of grey dwarfs directly into the clutches of a troll. You might be thinking, those doofy guys are huge, I'd see a troll coming. You won't. Keep in mind, this scenario involves the easy enemies. You see, based on Valheim's marketing, the chief promise it makes is that you will die. Based on my pro-level skills, I can confirm this to be true. I wouldn't say Valheim is particularly difficult from what I've played so far, but the circumstances by which you can die are myriad. Smoke inhalation, drowning, exposure, even the trees are dangerous if you're not careful. That's to say, Valheim takes the phrase player versus environment to heart. It's not the 300 plus damage troll club that's responsible for your being crushed into paste. It's the mossy log you didn't see that stopped you in your tracks while you were aiming your bow. There's several biomes to explore, with a few more in development, each with their own personalities and obstacles to overcome, but I won't spoil those here. Just know that I'll be laughing somewhere when you find out what I mean by no, that's not an island. With that in mind, you might be thinking, just how big is the world of Valheim? Well, I spent my first 20 hours in this area, and if I zoom out, yeah, it's fucking huge. And all of this for 558 megabytes. Do you remember a few minutes ago when I said you'll often be asking yourself if you should make another base or turn back? This is another reason why that question is so important. If you want to prove your worth to Odin of Flowers, you need to battle his 7 evil X's. And they're just way out there, man. Scattered all across the globe. And believe me when I say out there is very, very far away from that base you just tricked out. You see, Valheim does something wonderful, and that's that it utterly destroys the one base to rule them all mentality. While the concept of having one all-powerful base is something you earn over time, instead you'll find yourself making outposts throughout the world to re-up and rest up so you're prepared for the next leg of your adventure. For me, this is super refreshing. Sure, in games like this you can make as many bases as you want, but it's really unnecessary most of the time, isn't it? Most survival games offer an overabundance of permanent solutions to the problem of distance, which tends to make the world work for you in the long run. Not so in Valheim. While you do unlock some powerful convenience utilities, you'll always find yourself forging ahead into the unknown with limited resources. Because of this, the world never feels small and always feels dangerous.
Hoist the colors.
Hoist the colors!
Can I be honest? Nothing has happened yet. What is that? What is that? What is that? What is that? I don't like that. No, nope, nope. Stop looking at it. Stop looking at it. I don't want to see that. Just keep going. The waters are calm. There's a spooky tree. Your swamp. We're safe.
But what is exploration without discovery? While you're fighting the planet for another day of life, you'll find delightful little details scattered throughout the realm. Standing stones, ruins, decrepit towers, abandoned hamlets, dungeons, troll caves, shipwrecks, runestones, and more. Not everything serves a functional purpose, but all of these little flourishes contribute to a world that feels lived in, and its continued memory survives only in you. It's pretty good. And it's pretty, too. Yeah, this is nice. Relaxing, almost. Somehow, combat is the least compelling of the big three ingredients that make up Valheim, but not for lack of trying. Combat is usually a weak point for games like this, but when I say least compelling, really I'm speaking to the strength of Valheim's crafting and exploration. Combat is competent and engaging, but I wouldn't say it's the primary appeal of the game. It's what you might expect from a Souls game. There's a bunch of weapons to discover, several weapons have their own movesets, you have a stamina meter which fuels your offense and defense, and every attack is a telegraphed commitment. Just as well, Valheim borrows timed parries and backstabs, along with the telltale sound of the get fucked gong when you pull off one of these maneuvers. While parries and dodges are critical to combat, I do enjoy that Valheim tends to reward aggressive play. The last swing in a combo does way more damage than the first, and if you smack a bench enough times to stagger them, you can squeeze in some bonus damage on top. At the same time, don't get cocky and learn when to conserve stamina or sneak in single hits to give yourself some time to dodge or block. It's a tried and true formula, but there are some differences. In the Souls games, combat is usually more intimate, with encounters involving one to a few enemies at a time. Valheim is not so kind, perfectly willing to throw 6 or more enemies at your jugular when you're most vulnerable. What do you mean the forest is moving?
Open the gate! If the forest is moving around! Those are Ents. There we go, that's a better one. Nice parry! That was dope. You're just a woodsman. Nice parry! Let's go!
That being said, because of generous parry windows and iframes while dodging, combat isn't so difficult that you should feel afraid. Don't forget, you are Odin's wrath. Even your bare hands are dangerous pinchers in a pinch. Get pinched. Don't be fooled. While combat is easy enough to master, the real difficulty comes from compounding circumstances. What do I mean by that? I'm talking about being way away from home base. Your rest bonuses run out, it's cold, and you're wet, so stamina regen is slow. You've resorted to eating berries, so your max stamina and health are low too. You've run out of arrows, your main weapon is nearly degraded, and they've found you. You have enough strength in you to run away or fight, but not both. So what do? This is what makes Valheim's combat worth its inclusion. Just like crafting and exploration, it becomes another puzzle you must solve or die trying. This idea reaches its pinnacle in Valheim's boss battles. While you'll most likely be as prepared as you can be, wielding pristine equipment and a belly full of your most nutritious grub, Valheim's bosses will turn the tables. They're proper bosses with unique designs and attack patterns that force you to learn the fight to succeed. It's less about skill and more about your ability to adapt to the circumstances. Honestly, I'd say that about sums up the entirety of the game. Wait, I guess you're not an ODST then. You're Super Viking survivalist Bjorn Grills. With a game like this, it's important to go in blind, so I've tried my best to avoid specific details when discussing the big 3 ingredients on offer. That said, when so zoomed out, it's easy to miss the little things that flavor the substantive stew that is Valheim. First off, the stuff you're looking at right now, the graphics. At a glance, the layman might think they're quote-unquote bad, but I'd describe them more as lo-fi, stylized at the very least. Valheim really is a beautiful game. The gorgeous weather effects that swallow the landscape propel it deep into atmospheric territory. Then there's the skybox, glittering with constellations and held aloft by the bows severed from the world tree itself. If you look carefully, you can even see that the skybox rotates at a different angle than the sun and the moon. Neato. The writing is serviceable, if not plain fun. From the intro exposition to the runestones you find throughout the world, you cannot ignore the metal. And those runestones, I love them. They both manage to fit in juicy world-building details and actual hints to important puzzles at the same time. And let's not forget the summoning altars, which demand specific sacrifices through adorable phrases like hunt his kin and burn their young. Odin really is one petty bastard, isn't he? Part of me hopes that one of the summoning altars reads shit talk his mom on Twitter. Some other things of note that I really enjoy. Workbenches offer limited space in which you can build, forcing you to find ways to conform to or escape that limitation. Beds and crafting stations can't be exposed to the elements if you want them to work, so you're inclined to build practical looking outposts without really thinking about it. There's random Terraria style events, consensual PvP, and most importantly, generally no hand-holding outside of Hugin's quick introductory tutorials. Making these videos is therapeutic, not because I have a lot of negative things to get off my chest, but mostly because I scream into a pillow before recording. That being said, there are some drawbacks to consider here. As of this video, while there's a healthy variety of enemies present in the game, they function pretty similarly to one another. You can expect most enemies to move to player and swipe at player with similar animations to boot. Going forward, I'd like to see more varied movesets between mobs, like how the Grey Dwarf Shaman can spew out poison and heal other mobs, or the Rancid Remains, which clubs at you with a poisoned weapon and big overhead swings. I want more reactive mobs that force me to have to master them specifically, so I have a harder time getting away with a single combat strategy. In this same vein, enemies are pretty easy to kite around until you're in an advantageous position. This is okay in the overworld, but for instance in burial chambers, where you're in tight corridors and close quarters, it'd be more challenging if enemies were less likely to leave their rooms entirely. Instead, I should have to enter their space, thereby putting me at a disadvantage. Case in point, troll caves. Dungeons in general can be expanded on wholesale, especially burial chambers, which are pretty one note, but I understand the focus is more on the overworld. Lastly, and probably my favorite note, is how you can parry ranged attacks and stagger the sender. It doesn't make much sense, but I kinda love it. They shoot their shot and watch you deny it, and they're just like, Valheim rocks. Get it. It's probably the most fleshed out early access game I've ever had the pleasure of playing, and serves as a reminder of what a survival game should aspire to be. It may not be as dense as Terraria, or as meticulously designed as Dark Souls, but it successfully marries the two into something I cannot wait to see grow. I'm on campaign. Thanks for watching.